Welcome to Beyond Co-Sell, the show where we get into what actually drives success in the AWS ecosystem. There's no fluff, no partner speak, just honest conversations with people who've built it, broken it, and figured how it works. I'm Andrew Morris, and joining me today is Pete Sharples. Pete spent nearly 8 years inside AWS, long enough to understand exactly how the partner machine works from the inside. He then crossed to the ISV side as VP APAC at Builder AI, where he built the ANZ business from 0 to 500K ARR in 6 months and rewrote their global partner resale program. He's now founder of Mitzi Chat, a non-executive director at Cloudable AI, a company whose entire product thesis is that hyperscaler partnering is too expensive and too complicated. Pete, that's a pretty pointed conclusion from someone who spent 8 years building the system. So let's start there. You went to the ISV side. What did you see that you couldn't unsee?
Oh, geez. At Builder, it was a lot. So I went to I call it more the scale-up side than the ISV side, because Builder was a bit of a combination of ISV and SI, to be frank. But it was fascinating. At that stage of my career where I really wanted to work for an early stage company. I'd never done it. The opportunity was there to go and jump in and do something really interesting. And the space was super compelling. The whole voice to code market, there was no Windsurf, it was GPT-3, there was no Cursor, there was no Replit, there was no Lovable. So it was a really interesting strategic direction, right? And it really attracted me to the space. But look, what I found was a couple of things. The complexities of working back into the hyperscale was worse than I thought.
Yeah.
Those that had the privilege of a relationship had a head start over those that potentially were programmatically doing things well. But I think the biggest learning curve for me was how important the leadership principles were at AWS as a guiding foundation versus an early stage company that was still finding its culture. I saw numerous things in personnel behavior, systems and processes that would not have flown at AWS in any way, shape, or form. But it was a fascinating exercise in firstly humility, but also fortitude.
Through that journey, give me a specific moment where you were looking at things and just thought, wow, this is broken.
Oh, easy. I had a potential prospect, not even a customer, a prospect, reach out to me cold on LinkedIn. And an Australian customer reached out and said, "Hey, Pete, you don't know me, but I've been in roles in Hong Kong. I've led APAC teams before. I'm just seeing some behavior from your team that I don't quite like." Like, okay, can we have a conversation? Jumped on and had a call with him, and effectively one of my staff members was taking deals out of our pipeline and funneling them out to a low-cost dev shop in Indonesia.
Wow.
Yeah, so you asked for an example. There's an example. We traced it back and we found this has been happening several times. So we went back and spoke to all of her lost customers and said, "What do you mean lost? We're still working with her." I'm like, "Okay." So that sort of just a basic ethical professional standard was lacking in some corners of the business. But yeah, there are others more systematically that we needed to work out, but they were just immaturity things. Whereas there were some things that were just, yeah, not on my watch.
Yeah.
They
Interesting.
didn't last long, by the way. They lasted a couple of days with suspended network access, and they're not escorted out of the building.
I wanted to just double down into the recent article that you did around the CPPO blind spot. And you've described showing an ISV leadership team in Asia their CPPO exposure. So competitors had authorizations with 2 of their top 5 SI partners, and nobody in the room actually knew. So walk me through that moment, and what were they looking at? What did it mean?
Yeah.
And why hadn't they seen it before?
Yeah. So look, it came from just a little mess around project that I was doing on the side. And so had a couple of conversations. Obviously, we're doing a lot of advisory work with ISVs and startups that are going live on Marketplace and thinking about long-term growth, and having conversations around that downrange channel partner private offer coverage of their top SIs.
Yeah.
So if they don't know, the benefit of that is that when you have your downstream partner with a CPPO offering, they can bundle in their professional services, training, integration effort into a single bundled private deal for an AWS enterprise customer, they can draw down from their PPA, right? So it's a very effective way to accelerate semi-complex deals that involve your software product and some professional services around the outside. And the general observation was not many organizations knew about it. Now, to be fair, we're dealing predominantly with early stage ISVs that just haven't hit that level of growth and maturity yet, but it just staggered me that no one knew. So I started playing around with Claude, went and built a prompt and said, hey, look, let's just play around with this. And it just so happened that I had a meeting that afternoon. I was playing around with it, and I jumped on and just asked the question, and it was really funny. I got two different responses, like the partner guy, and then there was the VP of revenue, and partner goes, hey, no, we're good, we're all sorted. And the VP of revenue went, oh, I don't know what this is, never seen it before. So I said, let's give it a go. And I pulled up this, here's one I made earlier, pulled up the prompt, put in live real time, just impromptu, and give me your top 5 partners. And they were usual names, like they were GSIs, SIs, the typical names that everyone would know. And top 2 competitors, again, names that everyone knows. It was a security ISV, so yeah, pretty identifiable competitors, identifiable partners.
Yeah.
Hit go, and yeah, two of their top 5 partners had no CPO coverage with them, but did have CPPO coverage with their top 2 competitors. So the conversation very quickly turned. I don't think these are in your top 5 partners. I think they're in your competitors' top 5 partners. So it really sparked the conversation, and I did feel bad for the partner guy. Honestly, I didn't mean to throw him under the bus. It's like I went straight to the appendix of the Challenger sale book and went, I'll take this one. It wasn't intended, but I said, look, here's the prompt, go wider. So go to 5 competitors and go to 20 SI. So let's get a better, broader data set to have a look at, because they were looking at international expansion. And so if you're going to go international, you're going to be relying more heavily on partners. Therefore, you really do need CPPO to break out of the Australian market and to move into the UKI and North American market spaces.
We've been talking about you embracing Claude. Anthropic launched Claude on AWS Marketplace in March 2026. And you did a recent post that argues that LLMs are going to actually displace hyperscalers as the first touch procurement advantage. So
Yes.
that the company that owns where the buyers actually start their evaluation journey owns the distribution layer. So make the case, why does an ISV AWS Marketplace listing become less valuable as buyers start inside Claude rather than inside the AWS console?
Yeah, gee, I copped some heat for that one, didn't I?
Yeah,
It was some interesting. But that's interesting, right? I don't mind poking the bear on occasions. Look, this was my assertion, right? So imagine that you are a builder, so not a buyer per se, but you're a builder, right? So you are building projects in Claude, you're coding in Claude, you may be an entrepreneur out there that's building something. The ability for Claude, not just to produce code, and it might be others, could choose your LLM, right? I think OpenAI will launch a marketplace very soon. I reckon Grok's going to follow suit. I think this is going to be a path that they go down.
Yep.
The ability for you to be building real time and for Claude to be suggesting based on its knowledge of your enterprise architecture and its knowledge of your procurement processes and standards, the fact that it can recommend almost in-app purchases for what you're building. I see you're building an app that has a customer front end. Do you know your standard for authentication is Okta? Should I go and procure some licenses for you to protect your front end identity with Okta? Or it may say, I can see you're accessing our data lake right now. To do that, you need a license for Snowflake or Databricks. I'll go and procure that license for you. So it wasn't an assertion as much that it's going to displace, it's going to disintermediate a lot of those tactical buying decisions when a builder is doing something. And Claude's going, hey, I know what your standard is. I know your configuration standards. I know your procurement processes. I know your vendors of choice. I'm just going to buy this for you as I go and come off my marketplace. So I don't think it's going to replace it. I think the gravity of the AWS private pricing agreements and the size of them and the machinery around leveraging PPA drawdown for marketplace transactions, that's going to secure the lion's share of that revenue for AWS. The interesting thing for me was AWS has been successful because they've captured the first point of innovation. So if you want to build something, you go to the AWS console or the Microsoft console if you're on that side, or Google. You go and you build there, and then you go and buy the other bits around it. If you're not, if you're going to Claude first and building there, and Claude can start to influence the way that you buy as well while you're building, then that's a very interesting dynamic shift in that first touch procurement or that first touch innovation.
I wanted to touch on the Mitzi chat commercial model.
Mitzi?
Mitzi,
Yeah.
Mitzi chat.
Mizzy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it runs for a pay for performance model. So there's nothing up front. You pay for results.
Yep.
And that's a pointed design choice from someone who spent 8 years inside one of the most sophisticated partner programs in the world, right? So what experience made you build it that way? And what did you see that made you decide, I'm not going to charge up front for outcomes I might not do?
Yeah, look, so the company itself started over a bet and a beer, effectively.
Nice.
So I was having a conversation, as all good things do, right?
Yeah.
As all good life decisions start with a bet and a beer. A really good friend of mine is a mortgage broker, and in the Australian market, there's a lot of first home buyer incentives that have been rolling out recently to reduce the entrance costs for first home buyers to go and buy their first home. And he's expecting this huge ramp in sales that this didn't come. And I said, "How do you sell?" And so we just wait for the website to ping. I'm like, okay, that's not selling. So I said, look, I've got time on my hands. I think I can go and build a couple of AI models for you that can help with your front end capture through social media and also your back end reactivation for there's some 8,000 customers you haven't spoken to in 10 years. So I just rolled up my sleeves and got in and built a model, and I built a bit of a business around it. And I spoke to just some other people that I knew that were in the sole trader, small company sort of things. And they went, yeah, we're struggling. So it just grew from there. And I think that the pro and the con, right? The pro is the setup cost using AI is so insignificant. It is purely just your time.
And to those ISVs that I know, normally if they do have a partner alliance lead or head of partners watching this video, who's just in that new role, has a listing on Marketplace, trying to figure out what they're building, what's the one thing you would tell them to go and check this week that most people in their position haven't checked?
Yeah, look, I'd say if you don't know, get the prompt and run it. Or build your own. It's not hard. You can build your own if you want, or use mine. Just ping me on LinkedIn and I'll give it to you freely. Go run it. That's one thing to understand. The second thing to understand, the most important thing of all, is just understand who your customer is. Deeply understand who, because if you don't understand who your customer is, you can't expect AWS to get really clear on that and just pull out. One thing you could check is pull out your pitch deck to AWS and pull out your pitch deck to your customer. If they're the same pitch deck, you need to pull them apart. You need to speak to the ICP that is the AWS rep. How do they get compensated in your product? Who are you looking at? Who is their ICP when you go and talk to? Give them really clear guidance on what you're looking for and how they get compensated in your product. Then have a separate deck for how you talk to clients. It's the same deck, just muddling up two different things. Clear ICP for AWS, clear ICP for your customer.
Nice. Cool. On that note, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.